So next thing in your packet, so we got our next little page. Our second lesson, it's not as long as that first one. It's on the same little category. So if you've been wondering, the little 1.1s and the 1.2, that's organized by a book, and we're not really working with the book this year, but I'm gonna keep it just because all my stuff is organized that way. But so like we're still in section 1 of chapter 1 basically. But okay, so we're gonna go for this and look at what we got. So when the high school was built in 1969, and this is using a high school in Michigan. So our high school was built in 1971, I think, so we're pretty close. The school needed to pick a mascot. The principal decided to have the students and teachers vote for between 3 choices, and he took a random sample of some students and teachers, and here's our table. Alright. So we want to create 2 bar graphs below to display these results. Use 3 different colors for the bars. If you're like me and don't carry a thing of colors around, like in high school or whatever, if you want to do your bars like this, like you can make one of them like this, one of them this pattern, and one of them be like dotted. I don't know. You can do it that way. Okay. Sweet. So let's try this out. So the teachers, we are going to do a teacher only graph, a student only, and then we're going to make a segmented bar graph here for our third. So if we're only working with teachers, just to kind of go back to that first lesson, this is like a conditional graph, but because we're only caring about the teachers. Okay, so we got percentages here. So the Rams had 80%. So I'm gonna make a nice graph that says 80%. And then the Falcons were at 10%. And then the mighty Prairie Dogs were at 10%. I really wish we were the Bryan Prairie Dogs. That would be sweet. Is that what the Bucky? Wait, no. Is the Bucky? That's the Beaver. Ah. Okay. Dang. Anyways, disregard that. Okay, let's move to the next one. Students were at 60%. For the Rams. Oh wait, oops, that was totally wrong.
I think students come together. Yes, let's make our school mascot the Prairie Dog for the rest of the time.
Alright, let's do let's make a new poll, and if everyone votes Prairie Dogs in the school, we can change from the Vikings to the Prairie Dogs. So yeah, 30, 60, 10. Those are beautiful graphs. Best I've ever done. Alright, so I did my little graphs, I'm looking at it, and then I want to complete the third graph by taking a bar from the teacher sample and stacking them. So we're gonna make a segmented bar graph here on the third problem. Okay. So I'm gonna keep my colors. Maybe I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna note which ones I used for each. So I'm gonna say like the red was for Rams, the blue is my Falcons, and the green was Prairie Dog. I'll just say PE, Prairie Dog. Okay, so when you're doing a segmented bar graph, one thing is that I can start with whatever I want to do. I'm going to start with Rams, which means I'm going to do the same thing for the students segmented bar graph. They're going to match, okay? So like for my teachers here, I'm starting at 0, and I'm going to go all the way up to 60 for my teachers. And then I'm going to do my students Rams as well, which went to 30. What's that?
Why did you go to 60 for the teacher?
Oh gosh, I'm off everywhere. 80. I think I got that 160. I was just making sure you are paying attention. That's all I was doing. Of course. You know, the old teacher cop out. Okay, so 80 for that. Good catch. Okay, my Falcons teacher was at 10%, so I'm gonna add 10 more percent on top of it. So I should be at 90% roughly after that one. I'm also on my student problem gonna add 60% to the 30. So I should be at 90 for this one as well. And then rounding out the end here is the prairie dogs at 10% for each. Okay. So, segmented bar graph, that's what that one is so far. It's just a stack of the frequencies of each one on top. And then it's nice to have the same colors in order so I can see side by side what's happening. Alright, so number 3 on our notes says, according to your displays, which mascot appears to have the most support, and explain. So just from these 3 graphs right now, which one do you think like wins the survey? Which one's got the biggest? Yeah, it appears the Rams. So yeah, I'd say Rams. Because if you stacked all of them up, they have the most. They're the biggest bars, the biggest percent. So they have highest percent combined. Okay. Alright, so this whole lesson is about what sometimes segmented bar graphs aren't the best thing though. So, at this moment we think Rams are the best. Upon hearing the results of the surveys, the students argued the decision was incorrect because there's 100 teachers and there's 500 students being surveyed. So there's not equal amount, right? So it's not like 100 and 100. There's way more students than teachers. So what I want to do is I want to fill out this table and I want to fill it in with the results of me having 100 teachers and 500 students and see. I'm just going to put the actual counts, the frequency, instead of the percentages in here and see what's the numbers look like instead of writing the percents. What's it look like with the numbers? So for the Rams, it was 80% of the 100. So 80% of 100 is 80, and then 10% of 100 is 10. 10% of 100 is 10. Okay. I look at my paper. I think we're at 30% for the Rams students, and 30% of 500 is 150 students fell in that category. 60% of 500 is 300 students were in that one, and then I got 50 for the last one. Okay, and then I just want to keep us in good habits here, so I'm going to write my total number of Rams. So that's 230, 310, and 60. Alright, so how many times more students were sampled than teachers? Yeah, we had 5 times more than teachers. How can we update our third graph to take this into account? So how can I update this segmented bar graph back here to take into account that students is actually 5 times bigger? So what can we do to make sure that these are taking that into account? So what we're gonna do is, I want to show that like this is not actually, these two, just looking at this would be if teachers and students were the exact same percentage of people, or the exact same number of people. But we've got way more, so if we're wanting to do it that way, I'm actually gonna make this go out like 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna make this go out 5 times, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little segments of that length. And then I'm gonna make this one 1, 2, 3. So now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times bigger the rams. And then same for the prairie dogs. Now there's labeled that many times bigger as well. So now what that means is like this block of teachers and this block of students are the same, but there's 5 times more of them, so it's showing like comparatively how the students have way more people than teachers. It's putting it into like a fair fight. Like the students should have more input if there's 500 of them and 100 teachers. So what this is called, this is a special type of segmented bar graph called a mosaic plot. So this is called a mosaic plot. So a mosaic plot is just a special segmented bar graph that takes into account the group size. Like if one size is bigger than the other, it takes into account all the different sizes. So if we're at 5 to 1 size, I'm gonna give this graph 5 times bigger the size to make sure that I can visually see the representation of it. Alright, so a mosaic plot, special thing. Okay, so number 6, what should they make the high school's mascot now with that new data? The Falcons. And you could use the plot to say that, or you could just go by tally right there. There are 310 people who voted for Falcons, which is more than the 230 and 60. So it's just a simple tally vote, they win. And now our mosaic plot showed that too. So if I went back, this plot is showing that there's actually way more blue than red than we thought there was. So I would say Falcons, and you could use the numbers or you can use whatever. I would say because 310 votes compared to 230 and 60, something like that. But all a mosaic does is that it puts into perspective the size to help it's another way to like help our eyes see something correctly if there's a difference between the two. So like in this case, when we had a big difference between teachers and students, it's helpful to make a plot like that. Alright, so that was actually the main thing from this little second unit. So it's all that same stuff, categorical, quantitative, but introducing a mosaic plot. So if I was to say, like our important idea on the back side, what is a mosaic plot? It's just a special segmented bar graph, bar chart, whatever, that takes into account the size of your group. So that takes into account size of it just helps, it helps make those segmented bar graphs not equal. If there's truly a big difference, then I wanna do that to show how much larger of an area that actually takes up comparatively. Okay, sweet. Okay, so to kinda keep in line with second period, even if we have a little more time, I don't necessarily wanna give y'all something more. I wanna do question C on this check for understanding. So, question C says, write a few sentences summarizing the display in part A, revealing about association between grade level and job experience. So basically, tell me in a few sentences, a sentence or two, do you think that there's an association between you being a junior or senior and you working or not? And then just tell me why. Tell me one reason why. Okay. So let's do, give me a couple minutes. So question number C, look at the graph, tell me, do you think that there's an association or not, and why? Let's see, Major, cause I saw you were done before, tell me what'd you say for C?
So yes, seniors have had more jobs than juniors. There are at least 10% more juniors working than, seniors than working than juniors.
Okay, you pointed out that little gap
Yeah.
right there, okay, and you said, yes, there was an association? Yeah, nice, so yeah, I would say, if I was to do this, I would say something about, you could point out both little gaps here, so like, yes, there's an association, so yes, there is an association, because something like the graph shows, like seniors are more likely to be working and that juniors are more likely to have never had a job. Something about some of the differences there. So it shows seniors more likely to be working and juniors more likely to have never worked. Okay, so an association, if there's a clear difference, if they're not, so if they were roughly equal, then okay, but I think there's some pretty big gaps happening, 10 to 15% in some cases. And so I think there's a clear, like, the older you are, it seems like you're more likely to either want or need to be working for whatever reason. And maybe by your junior year, maybe because you don't have a car yet or whatever, maybe you've never worked, okay? So there's some sort of association with me knowing if you're a senior, I could probably say you're more likely to work. Alright, so that's what I got. That's all of our little first section of chapter 1. Just some basics on graphs, categorical, quantitative, having good graphs. So the homework is on Schoology. If you have not checked Schoology out, or well, we all have been there, but I posted chapter 1. So under chapter 1, if you click it, I have the notes that we just went through on here. Like if you're at home or you lose them for whatever reason, and then here's 1.1 homework. Okay. So you can click on it, and like one of them is to make a segmented bar graph, and so for that, I want you to do it on your own piece of paper and take a picture of it, like we did the other day. How y'all submitted a picture to me. Okay. All right, sweet. That is all I've got for you.